I've always been a light sleeper, which is why I thought the graveyard shift would be perfect for me. No bosses breathing down my neck, no phones ringing off the hook. Just me, the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights, and the grand, empty lobby of the historic Northwood Hotel. My job was simple. Sit at the front desk from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Make sure the guests didn't need anything, and log the nightly security checks. It was a relic of a place, all dark wood and velvet drapes, smelling of old polish and dust. For the first 2 weeks, it was blissful silence. And then, the whispers started. It began on a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. The days bled together when you lived your life at night. I was doing my first round, my footsteps muffled by the thick, patterned carpet runner that stretched the length of the main hallway. As I passed room 217, I heard it. A low, sibilant hiss, like two people having a frantic, hushed argument just on the other side of the door. I paused, my hand hovering near the walkie-talkie on my belt. But the Do Not Disturb sign was hanging from the knob, and I remembered the elderly couple who had checked in that afternoon. They'd probably fallen asleep with the TV on, some old black and white movie filling their dreams with static and drama. I marked my clipboard and moved on. The next night, it was the same thing. Room 217. The whispers. This time, they seemed to follow me down the hall, clinging to the air like cobwebs. I called the front desk from the house phone, just to make sure the line was working. I considered knocking, but the Do Not Disturb sign was still there, a silent sentinel. I mentioned it to the dame manager, Brenda, when she came in to relieve me. She just shrugged, polishing her glasses on her blouse. The Hendersons in 217? Sweet as pie. Paid for the whole week. Probably just hard of hearing, got the volume up too loud. She didn't hear the tension in my voice, the cold knot forming in my stomach. It was the third night when things shifted. The whispers weren't just in room 217 anymore. As I did my rounds, I'd hear them coming from vacant rooms I had just locked, from the end of a dark corridor I had just checked. They weren't arguing anymore. They were counting. A soft, rhythmic, malevolent count. 7, 8, 9. It was always just on the edge of hearing, disappearing the moment I stopped to listen properly. My nightly security walks, once a peaceful ritual, became a gauntlet of dread. I started taking different routes, avoiding the long hall on the second floor altogether. I'd find myself staring at the security monitors, my eyes glued to the grainy black and white feed of the empty hallways, expecting to see something, anything, that could explain the sounds. The climax came on a night when a storm lashed against the hotel's old windows, the wind howling like a banshee. The power flickered, and for one heart-stopping second, everything went dark and silent before the emergency generators kicked in, bathing the lobby in a sickly yellow glow. The computer system was down. The security monitors were dead. I was blind. My walkie-talkie crackled with nothing but static. Protocol demanded I do a manual check of all floors to ensure guest safety. My flashlight beam was a frail spear of light in the overwhelming darkness. The whispers were gone, replaced by an even more profound silence, broken only by the storm and the frantic hammering of my own heart. I worked my way up from the ground floor, my knuckles white on the flashlight. Each floor was a landscape of deep shadows and echoing emptiness. I reached the second floor, the air noticeably colder. I shone my light down the hall towards room 217. The door was open, just a crack. The Do Not Disturb sign was gone. My blood ran cold. I knew I had to check. I crept forward, every sense screaming at me to run. I pushed the door open slowly, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness of the suite. The room was pristine. The bed was made. The towels were folded. The complimentary water bottles were untouched. It was as if no one had ever stayed here. But on the small writing desk by the window, illuminated by a sudden flash of lightning, was a single, old-fashioned ledger book. It was the hotel's old guest registry, something I'd only seen in a display case in the lobby. It shouldn't have been here. My hand trembled as I reached for it. The leather cover was cold. I opened it. The pages were filled with names and dates, all in a fine, spidery cursive. I flipped towards the more recent entries, and then I saw it. My own name. It was written in fresh, dark ink. The date next to it was tonight's date. And next to my name, in that same elegant script, was a room number, 217. I dropped the book as if it had burned me. I stumbled back into the hallway, my breath catching in my throat. That's when I heard it again, the whisper. But this time, it wasn't coming from a room. It was right behind me, so close I could feel the chill of it on my neck. It was a single, clear word, filled with a terrible, ancient hunger. Relieved, I didn't look back. I ran. I didn't stop for my coat, my phone, anything. I burst out into the storm-soaked night and never looked back. I called Brenda the next day to quit, my voice shaking so badly I could barely form words. She was quiet for a long moment. "I was wondering when you'd find out," she said, her voice strangely flat. "The man who had your job before you. He worked the night shift for 30 years. He died in his sleep, in room 217. We never rent that room out. I don't know who you thought the Hendersons were, but that room has been empty for a decade." She hung up, leaving me with a silence that was far more terrifying than any whisper.